Hey everyone, so I purchased 10 raspberry plants and 5 of them are called Heritage and the other 5 are Fall Gold. So I thought it'd be interesting to test out, because I'm going to have to buy a lot of potting soil anyways, which potting soil mix works the best. So these are the 5 that I have. Most of them are from Home Depot with the exception of the Miracle Grow Organic right there, that was from Costco. But these are all potting mixes. We have the Kellogg Patio Plus, the Miracle Grow potting mix, another Miracle Grow Organic Choice, the Near Source Organic, and then the Vigoro All-Purpose Potting Mix. So the idea is I'm going to plant 10 raspberry bushes, 2 each one of these potting soils will be in 2 of the plants, 1 for each breed. And then we're going to see an update after a couple of weeks, maybe about after a month, and see how they're working. If one potting soil is doing better than another. In addition, I do see that some of these, for example, this one mentions feeds up to 6 months. I believe there was another one. Oh yeah, this one, the Vigoro, says feeds for up to 9 months. So we're gonna put that up to the test. So I won't be adding any additional compost or other potting soil. They'll all be back here. So they'll be watered by those sprinklers. So they all should get consistent watering. And I'll even layer them differently in case one side gets more sun. So hopefully we will see which potting mix works the best. So let's start by getting them into their containers first. All right, here is the aerial view shot. Hopefully this helps you see the different potting mixes next to each other and kind of see like, hey, how these look differently already. I showed the close-up, but this kind of high-level overview might help. And it also might help you remember which potting mixes are in which container. All right, we have a 2-week update. Don't want this to determine any front runners or anything, but just kind of more of an interesting observation on how these bare roots are growing their leaves in a way. Of course, some of these make sense growing from the stem, but you have some of these like this one that actually came from the bottom. It just actually sprouted from the bottom. Here's another example right here where the stem looks bone dry, but we see some growth coming in from underneath. And here's another example of that coming from the bottom, although this one does have a little bit of both. So we are currently, after 2 weeks, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 10 showing some signs. This is okay because it usually takes about up to 4 to 6 weeks to see some growth. So we're still okay. And luckily, at least 1 from every potting soil does have some growth. So I don't think we're going to make any initial conclusions, but I thought it was still interesting to see, and I'll definitely keep you guys updated. Hey everybody, so we are on week 4, so I thought I would do another update. The first thing is that all 10 have now some growth. Now some are a bit smaller. As you can see right here, we just had this little tiny bit coming out. Another one where we're not seeing the cane or coming off of the cane, but coming up from the roots underneath. And here's another one where we see a few more doing the exact same thing. So from a growth perspective, it's good that all 10 are now showing some growth. I think we can now start making some, sharing some of our observations at least. So for starters, at least 1 on every potting soil, except for 1, has some decent growth. And the one that does not is the near source. So this is the near source organic. This is the first pot that just has a little bit of growth. It just came in this week. And the other pot is right here. So also has some low growth there as well. Not sure exactly why. All the other ones have at least one. So here we have the Kellogg, the two different Miracle Grows that we see some good growth there. And even the Vigoro at the end over there has some pretty decent growth. So that's one observation. At least we're getting some growth though, so that's the good news. The other thing that we're noticing is that out of the 5, only the 2 Miracle Grows had the most consistent growth. So that's this one right here in the yellow bag potting soil, and this is the organic one that we got from Costco. Again, the yellow potting soil, this is the second one, and then the organic growth potting soil from Costco. Now, one thing that we did notice with the Miracle Grows is that it does feel fluffier. And I'll show you what I mean. So this is the one in the yellow bag, and I noticed that it's fluffier and drier. It seems to lose moisture quite a bit faster. Same thing with this one, right? That, you know, today we just watered and the outer edges. Now, granted, these are grow bags, tend to dry out quite quickly. We'll see what that means in the future. Having that airier soil might have made it easier for the roots to establish themselves, is my hypothesis right now. But even here's the other one. This one's a little bit more moist, but again, very airy. Compare it to, let's see, this is the Kellogg one, much more dense. You can't tell in the video, but I'm actually having to put a little bit more effort to kind of digging it up. It is retaining that moisture much better though, even in a grow bag. So I'm thinking having that airier soil helps with the initial root growth, makes it easier so they don't have a lot of things to kind of make their way through. And we'll see if that airy soil will help them later on. So this is our 4-week update. We'll definitely recap all the observations at the end, but it's still definitely very interesting to see at the 4-week mark. All right, we are at the 8-week mark. And as you can see, there has been a lot of new growth. Thought I would share a few updates here. So the first one, this pot right here, this bottom left one, I actually had to put a stick because it was growing a bit top heavy, as you can see, and I noticed that it was leaning over. So that is one thing that I had to add. The other thing that I have noticed is that some of these plants are growing fruit. So again, this is the near source soil, and we can see the flowers growing here, quite a bit of flowers growing over there as well. Here we have the Costco Miracle Grow, and we can see a couple of flowers growing here. In addition to that, we've got the yellow bag Miracle Grow that is growing some flowers here, and then we're seeing the other Costco Miracle Grow growing some flower buds here as well. So these 4 are starting to grow buds. Another thing that I am noticing, as you can see, these 2 up here are the Miracle Grows. These 2 right here are the same Miracle Grows as well, so they're growing quite well. The Miracle Grow bags continue to be fairly consistent, but the yellow bag seems to be pulling ahead the most. There is another one that's a little bit concerning, and that is the Kellogg, which is that one right there, along with this one. They are growing, but they seem to be the smallest, or as you can see there, the leaves are even yellowing a little bit. The most concerning that we're noticing at the 8-week point, at least for the other ones, such as here's the near source. That one doesn't look as well, but it does have the other one that is growing very well and flowering. So at least we have, one of the two plants doing well. And then we have this one right here, which is the Vigoro, along with the back corner, which is the other Vigoro. And what I've noticed that it's kind of going slow and steady. So, kind of in the middle of the pack and doing quite well. What I have noticed as well is that the Vigoro did mention that it does feed over 9 months. So I'm curious if, the fertilizer is releasing slowly compared to the Miracle Grow, especially the yellow bag one, that one, and this one. Those mentioned 6 months. So maybe they're releasing a little bit faster, and that's why you see that bigger growth. Will be definitely interesting to see as time goes on. So now that they're starting to fruit, I'll definitely start keeping track of how much fruit they're producing to see how they compare against each other. And of course, their leaf growth and the number of canes that we're seeing as well. But overall, pretty happy with how they're doing for the most part, and hoping to see some do even better as time goes on. All right, we are at week 12, and I have a few updates to share with you. So first off, as you can see, I have added tags so that it's easier for us to track which pot of soil is being used in each one. In addition, as you can see on this one, there's already a 1 there. I will be tracking how many pieces of fruit that I am picking off. As you can see, my daughter already got to one of them there. So after week 12 now, we're still seeing that the 2 Miracle Grows on the fall gold up in the front are still definitely the largest bushes that I have. However, because we are in late spring, anything that has a cane off the initial cane that I received will be fruiting. So as you can see, I only have 3 bushes that are fruiting. One right here, one right there, and then one more there as well. And those are canes that are coming off, as you can see here. Let me see if I can get a better lighting on that. Coming off of the original cane. So that's why they're fruiting right now. So they're getting a head start in terms of the count. But what I anticipate is that in the fall, all these new canes, the Prima canes, will be producing fruit later on. So right now, only 3 bushes are producing fruit. I'll be noting them, but we should see the other ones producing fruit later on as well. Now, besides the 2 Miracle Grows that I already talked about that are doing extremely well, hard to tell them apart in terms of how much fruit they are producing. The heritage versions are doing well. I would say if I had to pick, the one on the right with the organic is producing fruit because it has a cane coming off of it already, whereas the Miracle Grow in the yellow bag on the left has a larger bush, but not producing fruit quite yet. I would say after you take out the first 2, even the near source, as you can see on the left right here, and the Vigoro. We haven't talked too much about the Vigoro, but the Vigoro is almost like the tortoise in this race, and it seems to be doing quite well in terms of just the size of the canes. Here is the other Vigoro as well, as you can see, doing quite well. The only one that I would say that is not consistently doing well is probably the Kellogg. Here is the first one, as you can see, and here is the other one. Both of them a little bit more pale and not doing too well there. The other near source, as you can see, that also isn't doing too well. We had a heat wave come through, and it seems to have burnt the near source one. So that was the only one burnt. They all get watered the same, and for some reason this one got a little torched there. So I'm trying to keep it alive there. Otherwise, I would say the rankings are still fairly consistent. Miracle Grows are Leading the pack, I would say I really like the Vigoro actually coming up next, due to its consistency. The near source, if we only take what we received on this one, then it's doing pretty well, but otherwise we did get torched on the other one. And the Kellogg is definitely in the back of the pack for now. But I think this is still a really interesting update after 3 months. So we'll see how well they do as time goes on. All right, we are at month 5 now. We're in July, so definitely it's getting a little bit warmer here. And you can tell by some of the leaves getting torched a bit. Now I am noticing a few things. So one update is that this one did not make it. As you can see, I don't think this one was due to the soil, personally. I think this was just, bad transplant. I don't think the roots really did very well on the transplant. It would grow new leaves and then immediately die off, which usually when I see that, it's kind of using the reserved energy to grow the new leaves, but isn't able to absorb the nutrients and the moisture in the water through the root system. So that's my hunch there. I'm not gonna put that on the soil there. As you can see, with the exact same soil, this one's doing pretty well. However, I do see 3 brands near the top. One, or the first 2, should be no surprise, the Miracle Grows are still doing pretty well. Lots of fruit, definitely the most fruit that we're seeing, and the largest growth as well. As you can see, that's probably the tallest one that we have. On the back end, for the other breeds, or the other breed of raspberries, it's probably doing middle of the pack. Lots of torched leaves, but still a good amount of growth, as you can see from these 2. Now, the other one that's actually surprising me and how well it's doing is actually the Vigoro. So this is the Vigoro right here. Not the biggest growth, but lots of consistent. Look at this new growth coming in from the sides here. Look at all these. All these are coming. This is the Vigoro, and so is this one from the back. As you can see, it's kind of hard to tell here because the other one has been, the other Miracle Grow is growing so large, but this one's doing pretty well. Oh, look at all that growth there. We got one here, all these down here. So it's actually doing really, really well, and I'm really impressed with it so far. So I would say the 2 Miracle Grows and the Vigoro, my top 3 so far. The Near Source and the Kellogg have not been faring so well. I think the next thing that I'll be interested in seeing is that the Miracle Grows say that they can feed for 6 months, and the Vigoros say it's for 9. We're approaching the 6-month mark. Interested in seeing around the 6, 7, 8 month marks if we're going to see any differences. Will Vigoro pull up into the lead, or will the Miracle Grow still stay strong? So definitely do more updates. All right, so we are in month 7, and while it doesn't look like it right now, we actually went through a bit of a heat wave. And during that heat wave, I was generously watering, but as you can tell, a lot of these raspberry bushes got burnt. And while I do think if I had set up like some shade cloth or something else, put them under the patio, it might have saved some of these leaves from being burnt. But I also kind of wanted to put some things to the test. So for starters, as you can see here, oops, that has rubbed off. This one and that one are both of the Kellogg's, and they both did not survive the heat very well. that one, which was the all natural organic, what was it called? Near source? Yeah, near source. This one was already dead last time. And as you can see from the other near source, not doing so hot either. The other ones, you know, the Miracle Grows, the Vigoros, doing fairly well still. Obviously got burnt, but you know, they're growing back. But I am noticing a few things. And that is the Vigoro and the Miracle Grows seem to have handled the heat a little bit better. So that's one thing. The near source, barely hanging on by a thread. Hard to recommend this one. Same thing with the Kellogg. Clearly both of them didn't make it. Hard to recommend that one as well. The other thing that's interesting is that, you know, now they're kind of, you know, it's September right now and near the end of September. And they're, you know, the raspberry bushes are going through their second growth. You're seeing, here's some new shoots coming out, right? This is the Miracle Grow, the yellow bag. This is the organic one from Costco. Again, we're seeing, you know, decent number of shoots. But check out the Vigoro. Look at how much new growth there is coming from the ground. Same with the other Vigoro. Look at all that. Absolutely crazy. So my current observation is the Miracle Grows, they mentioned like they could feed up to 6 months. They gave the plants a ton of power up front. As you can tell, tallest stalks by far, largest stalks by far on both Miracle Grows. Even though they did get burnt up, but still lots of energy given to the plants up front. The Vigoros, decently, but it seems like there's more energy later on, because this does say 9 months, so maybe there's some type of slow release system that's going on here. So both have their value, just depends on what you're growing. Near source does have something still growing there, that little tiny guy right there. We'll see how it makes it, but clearly it's still struggling a bit. But that's what I'm noticing between these brands so far. I'll do one last update in another month. Hopefully we'll see some differences there, and you know, see if that's what's going to differentiate these different brands of potting soil. All right, so we are in month 8, and this is going to be the last update that we have on this potting soil and raspberry experiment. So as you can see, there's still some new growth. There's been less fruiting in these last few months from what I've read, because it's been hotter here in zone 10, is that normally raspberries produce more end of summer and the fall, but because of the heat that we have here, they tend to not produce as many flowers. So that's why I noticed that there was much more fruit in actually the spring, or late spring and early summer for me instead. Now, just to kind of show, here's one of the Vigoros doing pretty well in terms of growing lots of new leaves and new canes. The near source actually came to life. As you can see there, lots of new growth there as well. So doing well there. Here is the yellow Miracle Grow, the yellow bag from Miracle Grow, doing pretty well. Not as many, so I would say from what I've seen, the Miracle Grows didn't grow as many leaves and canes in the last month or two, whereas the Vigoro, here's one, as you can see, lots of leaves, lots of canes here, and the one I showed earlier there have far more across either breed. So that is what we're seeing here. At the end of the day, it does seem like the 9-month claim is pretty accurate. It seems to have a little bit more of a slow burn when it comes to fertilizer and nutrients. So we didn't see it pop up as much in the beginning, but it definitely continued strong throughout in this case, 8 months. Whereas we saw the Miracle Grows really come out strong in the beginning. Even the near source came out a little stronger at the beginning too, but really has tapered down quite a bit. So hopefully that's been a good recap over the last 8 months. Now, let me actually do the overall recap. So first, I realized that I didn't post any information about the price and quantity and the amount of fruit that I generated. So I'm going to post a table now. Okay, so now that you hopefully have a chance to check out that table, let's go over some recaps on this whole experiment. So we started back in February. It is now October, where we planted 10 raspberry bushes bare root. So we thought we would try 5 different potting soils. And then starting from the top left, we had the Kellogg, the yellow bag of Miracle Grow that you can get like at Home Depot, the Costco Miracle Grow, and then we had the Near Source, and then lastly we had Vigor on the far right. Already we noticed a few things. So first off, both in terms of the ones not surviving, both Kellogg's did not make it. And one of the Near Source, the one with the red heritage, did not make it. So the top row in the back are all red raspberries, the heritage raspberries. The ones in the front are all fall gold, which apparently does better in heat, which is why we're seeing a higher survival rate there. Now, in terms of composition, I started doing some more research as time went on. So here's the Kellogg one. And if you notice, there's a lot of wood chips in this. It almost reminds me more of mulch. And even though the watering, so they were all watered the same way, there's one sprinkler right there and another sprinkler right there to water them all. The Kellogg ones had difficulty maintaining moisture. You know, they were saying that the wood chips was supposed to help, but honestly, I did not. I noticed that it was drying out a bit more, and that might be why they didn't survive. I might have been able to keep them alive if I watered them extra, but you know, in the spirit of the experiment, I did not do that. So that is one thing there. Next, so here's the Near Source one to give you another example. This one has a little bit of wood chips, but far less compared to the Kellogg one, and this one did okay, right? Now, one thing that I did notice after looking more into their composition is that the Miracle Grows, both of them, and the Vigoro contain peat moss. And peat moss does a great job of retaining moisture. So that might be one reason why they succeeded a bit more in zone 10, where they were able to maintain moisture, especially in a potting soil. That's fantastic there. We did not see that in the Near Source. So Near Source and Kellogg don't have peat moss, and they seem to have struggled the most. Miracle Grow and the Vigoro did have peat moss, and they seem to have done fairly well. So that's one thing there. In terms of fruiting, easily, as you saw from the chart, the Miracle Grows beat out the rest. I mean, not even close, right? I think from the fall gold, the yellow raspberries, they each had like 60 or 70 raspberries each, which was fantastic. Even for the red heritage ones, I think they were like 14 and 30, somewhere around there, way more than any of the other ones. So they were always ahead of the pack when it terms of producing fruit. I do think that the Vigoro might have had a better shot if I was in a different climate. You know, that later heat really prevents it from raspberries in general from producing or more raspberries later in the season. So we might have seen more, but you know, right ahead we saw that the Miracle Grows do well. Even the Near Source did a little bit better in the beginning in terms of producing raspberries, as I had 22 from the fall gold area. So really, if I'm going to rank these, Kellogg's dead last. I mean, I wouldn't even consider buying it. In terms of pricing, Kellogg is the cheapest, but I think, you know, from a per quart perspective, but I think that's what you're getting, what you pay for. But it's pretty close in price to the Vigoro and the Near Source. And at that point, you might as well just go with the Vigoro. At least that's what I plan on going with from here on out. Miracle Grow, I'm going to go with the yellow bag for now because that's the one that you can get all year long from like Home Depot or another big box store. That one performed really well. It is more expensive, but something to take into consideration. The Costco one though, when it's in stock, I think I'm planning on stocking up on those wherever possible because it did really well and it had a high amount of peat moss. I mean, if you look at this, this is the yellow bag one, but you can just see how it's composed a bit differently, but it holds the moisture so much better. The other ones, by the way, the sprinklers did go off today, so that's why you'll see moisture even in the Kellogg one. But overall, even during my experiment, I did notice that the Miracle Grow and the Vigoro retained moisture far better, and that's probably due to peat moss. Now, regarding peat moss, one thing to, you know, for you to be aware, if it does dry out, it is a pain to kind of have it start retaining moisture again. So it's something that you need to keep an eye out for. And that's probably a pain point that you might have. If you let it dry out, it's then going to repel moisture, actually, funny enough. So something to make sure you have either a system or an automated system like I did. And that's a safer way to ensure that your peat moss doesn't dry out. Okay, so that's the bottom two, Kellogg and Near Source, that we likely will not purchase, right? Because might as well just go with the Vigoro. Continuing on more with the Vigoro though, the Vigoro, pretty good value, you know, from a all year long perspective where you can continue buying it from a big box store. Steady feeding throughout the year or throughout the 9 months. So this is fantastic value, and especially for things that may not need a lot of nutrients. So for example, maybe if you have succulents or maybe herbs, things that don't need nutrient or strong amount of nutrients, things that are not heavy feeders, I think Vigoros are a fantastic choice for there. On the other two, I'm going to bunch them together since they're both Miracle Grows and they both performed fairly similarly. The Miracle Grows packed a heavy punch of nutrients head on. Like we saw the growth come out in the very beginning, coming out strong, lots of fruit. I would probably recommend this for something like tomatoes and bell peppers, things that are strong, heavy feeders, that you need those nutrients right away. And it might make sense from that perspective to go with the Miracle Grow. So hope that was helpful. This was a fun experiment for me. I might try another experiment on another video where I see, hey, you know, if I take a Kellogg or something else and add some more nutrients, if it would help. Maybe if I add nutrients or additional fertilizer to the Vigoro, would it compete with the Miracle Grow? I'll give that a shot, but this was just as is. I didn't add any extra fertilizer, nothing else, and these are the results. So hope this was helpful. Feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions, or if you have any other ideas for experiments. I really enjoy doing these, and looking forward to any other ideas that you guys might have.